Today we are going to talk about Data 360 and Tableau Next, tips to hit the ground running. Like, how do you do that, right? In the next 20 minutes, we are going to cover why most AI projects fail, and it's not the usual suspects. We'll talk about that. I'll walk you through the 5-step framework of how to get started. I'll do a quick demo. We'll go over and look at some of the layers, if you will, of how to get started with Tableau Next and Data 360. And we'll talk about a real customer story, Leave and Nest, how they were able to save about 4,500 hours of their manual work just by adopting this. And then I will leave you all with a 30-day plan, and you can get started right this Monday if you wanted to, right? So before that, quick introduction. Shushri Mishra. I am a principal data and AI architect here at Salesforce. Been here for over 2 years now, and I'm based out of the Bay Area. All right, let's go. So before we get started, I will share a couple of stats from Gartner that they released. And one of them is half of the analytics is going to be grounded and being augmented by AI. I'm sure all of you are already being asked about that, right? Like you're being asked, like, how can I use AI to augment analytics? And this is one of the ways that you will be able to do that. But but Gartner thinks that almost 60% of AI analytics would fail without proper AI ready data. Now, you'd ask me, like, what does AI ready data mean? If your data understands your business logic, and both ways, vice versa as well, that's what I mean by AI ready data. And how do we get that? Is Data 360. That's where it comes up. Data 360 is the system of context for Salesforce. So whenever you're looking at the foundation, the data foundation on Salesforce, Data 360 comes into picture because it doesn't just bring in your internal and your external data. It also does unify your data to give you that unified profile view. It creates KPIs and insights for you. And then it also provides you that semantic layer to define the business logic. So all of these things together gives you the context that you're going to use, whether it's in your visualization, your dashboards, or your AI agents, right? So that's what Data 360 does for you. Now coming to Tableau Next. Tableau Next is built on top of Data 360. It's the world's first platform, agentic analytics platform, if you will, right? And it's built out of, if you look at the architecture, it's built out of these 4 layers stacked. And we'll go over each layer one at a time. And we'll do a bottom-up approach. Now, if you look at this, the data layer first, the data layer is nothing but Data 360. You bring in all your data, whether your data lives in data lakes, data warehouses, or your disparate sources, or Salesforce, it can all be brought together and unified in the data layer that is Data 360. The next layer on top of that is the semantic layer. The semantic layer is where you define your business logic. Now, imagine you have a business logic for CSAT. Now, a lot of challenges that today you must be facing is it means different things to different people in different business units. You want to unify that so that it means the same thing across the globe, and that's what the semantic layer gives you. You define that logic in plain English once, and that semantic layer is going to be used across the platform by any agent or by any dashboard, right? The next layer here is the visualization layer. The visualization layer, we all know, it's our own traditional classic Tableau, right? You have all the customizations, the beautiful dashboards, the visualizations, the reports, everything available to you. Last but not the least is the action layer. This is the most important layer, if you ask me, especially for Tableau Next. And that's because, yes, you have the visualization, the dashboards, but what can it do for you, the action layer? That's where the agentic platform comes into picture. Here, you are able to ask natural language questions, and all these layers, all the good work that you have done in these bottom three layers, that's where you're able to take advantage of that. So you ask natural language questions to the agent, and it's able to answer that because you have all these three layers all set up. Now, across all these four layers that we have, you have the Agentforce platform, you have the Tableau marketplace across all these layers for the scale, and of course, you have specific Tableau Next for each Salesforce app, if you will. It's Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud. You have everything specific, utilizing the same architecture. All right, so here is what the world looks like today for you guys, okay? And here's what Data 360 and Tableau Next can get you. I'll let you go over this real quick, but you can see that stark difference. All right, so the 5 steps to hit the ground running, and we'll go over the framework one step at a time, right? So the first step is, of course, organizational alignment, the most important one, if you ask me, right? One executive sponsor, you have that, you have the decision making. What can that do? You have executive leadership where you define your strategy, you define the decision making, you bring it together. It cannot be done in a silo. You have to bring in different teams all together to make this happen and to have that across the organization, global impact, if you will, right? So the building blocks of that is a COE, a center of excellence. I'm sure, and this applies to any business size, if you will. But center of excellence typically in does Salesforce best practices, runs POC labs for new upcoming technologies. Now, they will be the flag bearers of that typically, right? Now you go to the digital or marketing team to get your pulse into, okay, what is the market looking for? And what can be a high impact stat or KPI or an action that you could be looking for, right? Last but not the least, the IT and the data department. This is where the data layer comes into the picture as well. They make it ready for you to do this job, right? So whether it's where does the data live, how do the pipelines work, how can I get my data into a single platform in Data 360, and what kind of visualizations or views are we looking for? All of that can be taken care of by the IT department. So when I say organizational alignment, all these different teams need to come together to a consensus. The next one is pick a use case. Very important. But when I say pick a use case, do not start with the technology. Always start with an outcome. And that's because if you start with the technology, you'll have a good, maybe a semi good use case. But if you want to get to a great use case, you need to define your outcome first. What is that one thing that will move the needle for the organization, and then define that outcome? For example, what is the CSAT is just a dashboard or a report or a stat, right? Instead, if I ask, okay, my outcome is I want to know if the CSAT goes below 40%, what happened, why did it go down, and what is my next best action? That is a good outcome to look for, right? And that's what you should be looking for, that action, the signals that you're looking for, all of those different factors. And that brings us to the next one is identify your signals. By identify your signals, what I mean is a signal is just a specific metric that you're looking for. Again, CSAT is when the CSAT goes below 40%. Another signal could be if my pipeline goes below 3x of what I'm trying to move to my target to, right? Or if the inventory goes below, I don't know, my threshold that I've set. All those different things are signals that goes to the same outcome, if you will, right? So name your signal like a human would in natural plain language, and that goes into your business context of a semantic layer. That's why you need this. All right. The next step is map your signals. Now, for map your signals, what I really mean is this is how you should be thinking of from a mapping standpoint. Remember those four stacks that we spoke about in the architecture? This is exactly what we are going to do. Is we have our signals here. For example, these are the three signals that we spoke about. And we have our different layers, the four layers that we had. And from a top to bottom approach, again, define the data layer. So what data does the signal need? Where does it live? How can I get it? Right? Then you define the semantic layer. For each of these signals, you define that. For the semantic layer, I need to know what is that business logic that I need to define in plain language so that the agent or a dashboard can understand that. The third is the visualization. What kind of visualization am I going to create for this? Who is going to see this? Where are they going to access this? Right? And the fourth one is the action layer. The action layer is where you define what action needs to be taken. Okay, CSAT went below 40%. So what? What do I need to do about it? Why did the CSAT go down? All these things can be part of a business logic and can be part of the action layer that can then take action in your application. If you want to fix it, you can do automations. Those actions can be run through MuleSoft or Salesforce Flows or Apex, you name it. But that action can be taken, right? And this is something that you can do. You don't have to fill every cell here, right? You just have to know which cells are very important to you and then fill them out. So that lets you, give you a full picture of end to end what you need to build. All right, coming back to the architecture, we spoke about like how these different layers are going to impact you. We are able to already map them. The layers are here for counting, and then basically you are able to implement, if you will, right? Okay, so I will show you a couple of the layers, if you will, here. Okay. So first things first, this is the UI for Data 360. Very familiar as you would be familiar with Salesforce. Now, the first thing you do is you get data in, whether through zero copy or you ingest the data. So by zero copy, what I mean is if you have your data sitting in your Snowflake or a Databricks or a Redshift, any of your data lakes, we have built connectors for it, and I'll show you in a bit right here, is we have all these connectors, and some of it can be zero copy as well. And as you can see here, there's a whole lot of connectors already pre-built and that you can bring in data from. You can federate or zero copy or ingest, like I said, and make this data available inside the platform. That's how you get data. Now, just to double click real quick on the zero copy aspect, all the rich work that your IT or data team has done with this doesn't need to change. We are not here to create yet another data silo, right? So that's why zero copy is so important, is because data lives where it lives. When you need access to that data, we are going to go and access that data real time and make it available. Only the data that you need, not the entire table, not the entire like database, if you will, right? Only the data that you need and make it available for your end usage. Now that's the data layer, the bottom layer that we're talking about. The next layer is the semantic layer, which is built on top of Data 360. Now that would be in here, the semantic layer. In here, you can see, I'll show you an example of a semantic layer, how it looks like. A semantic layer. So each and every one of those pink round thingies that you're seeing here is your business data, right? Accounts, individuals, advertising data. It's all coming from all disparate sources. It need not be all in Salesforce or in your platform, right? Now, you are able to, through using this semantic layer, you are able to create a relationship between them. And by relationship, what I mean is, I'll quickly show you that. So how do they relate? You can see it's a many-to-many relationship. and it's based on the key qualifier and the account ID. Account ID coming from the account and the key qualifier coming from the advertising data. Similar thing happens here for individuals as well. Right? Account ID and the primary account key. So this is the relationship that you're building. You can also create metrics here and define your metrics in business language. You can also use AI to optimize the model. You can also add your business preferences, right? So this is very powerful. This is what I meant by using natural language, plain English to define your metrics, and then it understands what you mean by that. So for example, as you can see here, when you're asking or when you're saying, tell me the largest or the smallest account opportunity, things like that, what does that mean? Are you looking at the total TCV value or the ACV value, or the sum total of all the different opportunities under an account? You can define all of that in plain natural language, and then this is what the agent is going to use, whether it's a dashboard or an agent, is going to use downstream. So that's why it's so important that the semantic layer is defined before you get started on it. All right, going back to step 5 here. All right, low effort, big impact. I mean, I don't need to go over this again. I'm sure we all know this. If we can get a KPI or a use case which is low effort and big impact, that's definitely what we are going after, right? So, what will have the greatest impact in the shortest amount of time is what you're looking for, really. A lot of our customers who have been successful with Data 360 and Tableau Next have not tried to boil the ocean. They don't start Tableau Next and Data 360 with 20 use cases. They might have 20 use cases, but they prioritize and decide on that one thing that will have the biggest impact and then get started on that. Like, why did the CSAT drop? When did the inventory cross the reorder threshold? Like, these are all the questions that different departments are asking, but then you come together with that alignment and then decide which is going to have the most impact and get started on it. All right, I promised you the Leave a Nest a customer story, so here it is. This is one customer, it's a Tokyo-based startup that's been on Salesforce for about 10 years now. They have Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, they have all disparate account engagement. This is a company who basically connects corporations, businesses with academic researchers, right? So they organize a lot of these events for them to get together. So their data was scattered all over, and anytime they had to ask for any data, barely anyone used analytics because everyone got a different answer. So they stopped trusting the data altogether, right? So in comes Data 360 and Tableau Next. What they did was they brought in from those data silos, Sales Cloud and Account Engagement and Heroku, they brought in all that data together into Data 360. They unified that data. They defined the business logic in the semantic layer. So they had 10 years worth of data and they had 10 years worth of business logic as well. They defined it in plain language in the semantic layer, and they were able to get astounding results after that. As you can see, they access Tableau Next inside Slack, and their employees were able to next start asking questions like, okay, what researchers' conversion rate is, things like that. Any natural language question, and you have the data. Once you define the business logic, have the data to back it up, and then sky's the limit. So what they started seeing was the adoption improved for analytics from 10% to 80% there, right there. Now, they slashed the time required for by more than 80%, as you can see here. And they saved 4,500 hours of manual work per month by just doing this because they had to scramble and get data from different places to do this analytics, whereas now they're able to do it out of the box. So this is a quote from their board member. So let's get started on that 30-day plan, right? Very, very easy. Week 1 and 2, get your data into Data 360. Get started on that. Where the data, which data do you need? Where does that live? And how do I get into it? Do I have a connector? Things like that. Once you have that data and ready, Week 3 is always going to be build your semantic logic, your business model, and give you signals. Decide your signals, decide on your use case, and act upon it. By week 4, you'll have just bring up that analytics agent in Tableau Next and start asking natural language questions. That's all you need to do. And I leave you guys with these resources that you can access and get started on. Yeah, thank you.